Alright, a very good afternoon once again to all the viewers who are once again tuning in for our stream. Very good afternoon once again for joining in. We're going to continue where we left off earlier this afternoon, talking about the grammar close passage. Hope everyone who is returning back from our earlier live stream has managed to get a good rest. And if you're wondering what do you mean earlier live stream, usually on our weekdays we usually have concurrent streams running from the afternoon around noon time all the way to the evening. Alright, so if you're interested or you have free time, feel free to hop on in on our earlier streams to get a head start so that we can hit the ground running as we move on to our second stream for today. As previously mentioned, today we're taking yet another look at the grammar and editing passages before we move on to a second practice paper for today. The title of this paper you're currently looking at is the 𝗪𝗔𝗔 Girls' School 2023 P5 WA2 English Practice Paper, Paper 2. Okay, right now we're at Booklet B, looking at the grammar close passage. So let's get started before it takes too long. Right now we're taking a look at grammar close passage about sloths, right? Sloths are lovable creatures that normally live in the rainforest. Sloths are adorable, slow-moving animals that live in treetops. They can be found blank the rainforests of Central America and South America. Okay. So on to our first blank over here. Found blank the rainforests of Central America and South America over here. The preposition that you should be using over here would be to be found in. Okay. Found in the rainforests of Central America and South America. Okay, so this is a preposition. Usage. Okay. Right, now come in, we're looking at just the grammar close passage. Although their shaggy fur and long arms make them look blank monkeys, they are actually related to anteaters. So over here we are comparing or likening the appearance of sloths to monkeys. Okay, so to look over here, this would be a phrasal verb. To resemble. To resemble here would be to look like. To look like monkeys. They're actually related to anteaters. The two main species of sloths are the two-toed sloth, blank the three-toed sloth. So over here we see two different species of sloths, 2 toes, 3 toes. When comparing the two different sloths over here, we are enumerating the different species that exist out there. They are quite equal, right? So if you're listing out two of the species over here, the conjunction used to combine items within a list would be and. Okay, the two main species are two-toed and three-toed sloths. Both species blank similar in appearance. Okay, over here we need to fill this in with a verb. Both species over here indicates that this needs to be filled in with a plural verb. Okay. Any question over here why we are using a plural verb? Okay. Since we're referring to both species at once, we'll be using the plural verb, and that would be are similar in appearance. They have big tummies. The reason blank sloths look so pudgy is that their stomachs, which are always full, make up over 2/3 of blank body weight. So this is the context clue that we have leading up to our blank. The reason blank. So if you are providing a reason over here, you're filling it in with the blank over here, why. The reason why. The reason why sloths look so pudgy is that their stomachs, which are always full, make up over 2/3 of. See here, what does this pronoun tell us? Okay, they, there, it's in the third person plural. Yes? Third person plural. Thus, we will be using the third person plural pronoun of there. Okay, that would be option M. Sorry. So that is the third person plural of their body weight. Sloths have billions of bacteria in their stomach to digest the tough leaves they eat. However, even with help from their bacteria, it blank take up to 1 month for the food to be digested. So over here we're looking at possibility. It takes up to 1 month. It ranges up to 1 month, so it should be filled in with it can take up to 1 month for the food to be digested. Because of the sloth's slow digestion process and low calorie diet, they need blank save as much energy as they can. So this is what we call a phrasal verb. They must save as much energy as they can. So they need to save as much energy as they can. To do so, they have a body temperature that is 2 to 7 degrees lower blank humans. So this is a comparative adverb. Comparative adverb, lower than, right? THAN, be careful. THAN is for comparison. THEN is for passage of time. They also hardly move. Blank, they have to. This goes back to what we talked about conditionals earlier in our previous session. They hardly move. Blank, they have to. So this is the rule. This is the exception. So the conjunction you use over here to introduce an exception to a rule for a conditional would be option P, unless they have to. They also hardly move, which is the general rule, unless they meet the condition of having to. In that situation, they move at a top speed of 1 mile an hour when trying to escape from trouble. Any questions? Okay, so this grammar passage, it reinforces many of the skills we've learned before in the grammar MCQ just now. Alright? Okay. So I hope for those who have tuned in earlier this afternoon as we went through the noontime live stream session, you were able to leverage on what you've learned during the grammar MCQ to fill in the blanks over here for this portion. And if for any of the viewers over here who struggled with the grammar questions for this closed passage, in the future, you may consider wanting to join in for our grammar MCQ questions earlier this afternoon, as many of the skills we learned on there we build on and reinforce in the closed passage over here. Okay. Alright, so let's move on finally to our editing passage. As you can see from the introduction, the editing passage will consist of 2 forms of mistakes: to change or to edit. Okay, let me note them down for our benefit. Firstly, for editing passage, we start off, either with spelling mistakes. So spelling mistakes, common misspellings of words that people, or at least the students, tend to look out for, such as maybe duplicate consonants in the middle of letters, ending off with the correct consonant. And secondly, we'll be looking at grammar mistakes. These grammar mistakes range from word form to tense to even the use of certain word forms. Certain tense, word form, and even subject-verb agreement. So let's get started to see which variations in which the mistakes will arise. On a cold winter night, Mrs. Ye is sitting alone at home waiting for Mr. Ye to return. In this case here, what mistake would this be classified under? This is a word form mistake. It should be sat alone at home waiting for Mr. Ye to return. He had been gone for almost a year for work. Okay, contextual clues over here. Had been go over here is the past perfect tense, so this is a tense mistake. We're looking at had been gone for almost a year for work. All the money he had left her was now spent, and Chinese New Year's Eve was approaching. This is a spelling mistake over here. How should you spell approach? It will be spelled with APPROACH, right? Think of cockroaches that come towards you. Approach. And finally, ing, continuous tense. Approaching. Chinese New Year's Eve was approaching. Chinese New Year was a special and expensive celebration. Okay, expensive over here. Looking at expensive for costly. Okay, why do you know it's expensive for cost? All the money, all the context clues over here point to it being a costly affair. Okay, so this is yet another spelling mistake. Any questions on first paragraph so far? First paragraph, I think there's a good mix of both grammar and spelling mistakes, keeping us on our toes as we embark on the next few paragraphs. Question 2. Question 2. Paragraph 2. What am I saying? Chinese New Year's Eve dinner was the blank significant meal of the year. Okay, so more over here is the wrong word that's being used. We're looking at the extreme, the superlative. The most significant meal of the year. Even more significant than Chinese New Year's Day. Why? Why is this the case? Well, Chinese New Year, the Chinese believed over here is a spelling mistake. BELIEVD, that the Chinese New Year's Eve dinner was plenty of delicious and healthy food would start the year well and bring us happiness and wealth. So this is a pronoun mistake over here. The Chinese in this case here is your subject. So it needs to be in the third person plural. What is the third person plural of us? What would be the correct pronoun over here? Any ideas? Since you're looking at the third person plural, the answer you should have come up with would be bring them happiness as well. Okay, so well done for those who have gotten it right up to this point. Okay. If you think you have the answers next, feel free to drop them in the chat. Move this up. The Chinese New Year's holiday lasted for 15 days. If people could afford it, they would cook enough food for the whole 2 weeks, right? About 15 days is roughly about 2 weeks. Enough over here is a spelling mistake. How do you spell enough? E-N-O-U. And at the end, you have G-H. Now, this is a tricky one. If you're spelling it just by pronunciation, you wouldn't be able to get this. But G-H over here at the end of the word would be pronounced as the F consonant, the fricative. Enough for the whole 2 weeks. Not having to worry about cooking, they could relax and visit relatives and friends. More importantly again, spelling mistake. Important, firstly. More importantly, it showed others that they had money to buy all that food. So, everyone took pride in prepare a sumptuous Chinese New Year's Eve dinner. So this is a grammar mistake over here. It should be preparing. Up to this point, any questions for this paragraph? Any questions over here for this paragraph? I see. Okay. On to the final paragraph over here. Mrs. Ye began to worry, but she had expected her husband home hours ago. So this is the wrong word, the wrong conjunction over here to combine these two clauses. First reason, she began to worry. This is her reaction. What was the reason for her reaction? She had expected her husband home hours ago. So this is the reason behind the emotional reaction. So we're looking for a conjunction over here that introduces a clause that provides a reason or justification for the clause that comes before it, beginning to worry. So but isn't used correctly over here because but is used to indicate a contrast, right? But that isn't really quite the case here. So how should you fill this in? In this case, you're looking for because, a clause over here that, a conjunction over here that leads to a reason. Okay? Because she had expected her husband home hours ago. She tried not to think about the possible disasters. This is a spelling mistake. How should you spell disasters? D-I-S-A-S-T-E-R-S. Disasters that could happen on a winter's night like this, with the terrible snow and ice. At last, she heard footsteps trudging along the path. Do you have any questions over here? But otherwise, I think this question is pretty cut and dry. If there are no further questions, let's proceed with the remaining questions. And that brings us to the end of our first paper for today. Now we'll be taking a look at the second paper for now. Okay, if anyone is interested, we just went through the editing passage and the grammar close passages from P5 WA2 Weighted Assessment 2 from the St. Nicholas Girls' School back in 2023. Now let's move on to the next set of papers that we'll be going through for this afternoon session. Let me show it on screen for our benefit. We're taking a look at a second set of questions coming from Rosyth WA2 2023. Okay, so okay, allow me to just adjust some of the settings here. So I adjust the title. Right, okay. So let's proceed with, Let's proceed with this question. I'm taking a look at 10 grammar questions again. Starting off with first question. Our neighbor asked us whether we blank her missing cat in the vicinity recently. Okay. First question can be pretty tricky, so let's think about the order of operations. In math, you have order of operations here. So in English also, you have the order of actions taking place. First action we have is asking. Second action that we have is the verb of seeing, right? So which one happened first? The seeing or the asking? In this case here, you have whether or not you would have seen the cat first. Afterwards, it's followed by the neighbor's question. Everyone is here with me so far? Anyone is lost along the way? Okay, so let's keep that in mind as we continue on. So since we know see and ask the sequence of events that have taken place, let's shift that over to the tense discussion. Okay, ask over here is in the past tense, yeah? From here we see asked is in the past tense. So what comes before the past tense? You have an action taking place before the past tense. It's in the past perfect tense. Okay, everyone still here with me so far? Anyone's lost? Right, so with this in mind, let's look at our options. We have saw. Saw is in the simple past tense. Had seen over here is in the past perfect tense. Have seen, have, tells us we are in the present perfect. And were seeing, seeing tells us it's in the continuous. Now, among these four options, the one that is in the closest match to the answer would then be option 2, had seen, past perfect tense. Any question why? No, I don't think there will be, right? It's pretty cut and dry over here, looking at the past perfect tense. Okay. So that concludes our first question. If you have any questions or you want any more clarification, please let me know along the way. I will do my best to clarify your doubts. Question 2. If the man had hesitated before diving into the river, the child blank. So this is what we call a conditional. Conditional sentences need to adhere to the verb tense across both sides of the conditional break. Okay? So it had hesitated. Usually if a situation or scenario, what comes after is the hypothetical or the possibility of what could have happened. Okay. The hypothetical usually follows the form of will something. If I had $1 million, I will be the richest person in my class, right? So will something, a will, a verb, a possibility indicating a hypothetical. However, the verb tense of will needs to match the verb tense of the conditional verb. Okay. Had hesitated. Had hesitated is past perfect. Thus, we need to use the past perfect form, which is would have. Leaving us with the answer, would have drowned. Is this clear for everyone how we have derived our answer from this blank? So conditional questions can always be tricky, but make sure you are always aware you need to match the verb tense of will to the verb tense that shows up in the condition leading to the hypothetical. Question 3. The boy blank the principal praised is my neighbor. So what you need to fill this in with over here is what is known as a relative pronoun. What is a relative pronoun? A relative pronoun is used to introduce additional information or provide additional information about the noun. In this case here, who is it? The pronoun relates to who? The boy or the principal? Who is getting additional information over here? It is the boy, right? The boy blank the principal praised. So this is the additional information here. This boy is the one that the principal praised. So the relative pronoun over here relates to the boy. In this case here, the boy is the object of the sentence. Why is this the case? Because he was the one that received the praises of the principal. He received the praises of the principal. Hence, we are using the boy as the object. The only relative pronoun that fits this criteria is option 3, whom. When do you use whom? When you use who, when you refer to the subject, the one who carries out the action of praising. In this case here, principal is the one praising, so he would be a subject. The boy received the praises, he is the object. Any questions? Alright, this can be pretty tricky if you haven't come across this before, but no worries, who and whom are common troubles that students come across. If you have any doubt, please feel free to check out our 𝗪𝗧𝗏 official website. We have a series of free-to-view public blog posts talking about common grammar mistakes. Among one of them, the article contains who and whom, when to use either, right? So if you're interested, check out our website. We have on our website blog free tips and cheat sheets over here to help you tackle your grammar mistakes. Let me see if I can find it on my device to direct you towards this. Okay, right. So this is most recent over here. If you take a look, on our Writers at Work website, just go to our Writers at Work blog over here. Among the categories, you can see a wide range of categories that indicate the different subjects or articles we're looking at over here. However, for this question, you want to look at the 5th category, which is grammar here. Okay, can I see grammar? So just click on grammar. I can see the most recent article we just had published on June 27, 2024 talks about when to use who, when to use whom. Okay, so let me take a page out of our website to see what it says over here. Okay, let me see. If you can see the screen, let me know. If the screen is blurry, let me know as well. When deciding whether to use who or whom, remember this simple rule. Replace the word with he or she, use who. If you can replace it with him or her, use whom. Use who when referring to the subject of a sentence, and whom when referring to the object of a verb or a preposition. When faced with the choice between using who and whom, it is helpful to remember a simple rule. Substitute the word with he or she. If it makes sense, use who. If you can substitute with him or her, opt for whom. To clarify further, use who when referring to the subject of a sentence, such as, in who is coming to the party. Okay. Let's take a look at some sample questions that come from past year prelims. Miss Yoshida is one of 3 students who led the class. I was part of her school's courses to prepare her for the job market. So you see who over here, she led the class, so it will be using who as the subject. On the other hand, employ whom when referring to the object of a verb or preposition, as seen in to whom did you give the gift. Remembering this distinction can aid in selecting the appropriate pronoun and maintain grammatical accuracy in your writing. When do we use who? When determining whether to use who or whom, it's important to consider our roles as subject and object. For example, in sentences like who would like to go on vacation and who make these awesome quesadillas, who is used as the subject. On the other hand, whom is used as the object of a verb or preposition. This can be seen in sentences such as to whom was the letter addressed and whom do you believe? Or even in more complex sentences like I do not know with whom I will go to the prom. Sample question. The carrier bag charge was first introduced in early 2022. At present, the largest supermarket operators who impose the charge report an annual turnover of more than 100 million and are better resourced to implement the requirements. Okay. So over here, who is used to indicate that the operators were not carrying out the action of imposing charges. So you see more examples of who over here. Let's try to find an example of whom. Okay. Over here, we're looking at P6 English from prelim from 𝗪𝗧𝗏 High School. Simon, blank father is a science professor, emerged as the champion of the Science Olympiad this year. In this case here, whose is used to indicate that it is Simon's father, but not really the case we're looking for. Okay. Any questions? Okay. So be careful of when to use who, when do you use whom in your writing. Okay. Along the way, if you have any other burning questions about grammar, you can feel free to check out our Writers at Work website. Once again, just go to the website. Once you're at the website, look for the tab that says blog. Okay. The one that says blog. The other tabs are useful also, but just for purposes of learning, you can find additional articles at the blog. In our blog, you can find different categories of subjects and topics you'll be looking at over here. We span both primary and secondary level. Okay. However, grammar remains consistent throughout primary and secondary. So let's go to grammar over here. And you can see in grammar, we have a whole host of articles relating either to who or whom, when to use be and I, and also conditional sentences. See? Alright, so keep a lookout for this. We'll be referencing this throughout today's practice paper as well, and be careful with your grammar questions. Okay? If any of you have your mobile device with you, feel free to open up your website. Feel free to open up the Writers at Work website and scan through these articles as we go along these questions. If you think the question fits one of the articles, open up the article and try to answer the question by yourself first before I go through it together with live stream. Okay. And of course, all this is available publicly on the internet. So don't tell your friends who didn't join your live stream. This is just a secret between you and us, you and me. Okay. Question 4. John, together with his parents, blanked the party this weekend. This is what is known as a compound subject. What is a compound subject? A compound subject contains two or more subjects within a single header. In this case here, where your compound subject is joined together with conjunctions such as together with, what you can do as a really nifty trick is to ignore everything that comes after together with. Okay? So his parents over here, just ignore it directly. Focus only on John to find the answer to this blank. John blanked the party this weekend. So John blanked the party this weekend over here. Since this weekend is in the future, right? It hasn't happened yet. We should be using option 1. Okay? Is attending the party this weekend. Okay? Why do you use is over here? Because John is just one person singular. You can ignore his parents in the compound subject. Okay. Finally, question 5. The athlete decided to compete in the race. Blank, his knee was injured. The athlete decided to compete in the race. Blank, his knee was injured. Any idea how to go about answering this question? Okay, I see some answers coming in. Okay, right, so in this case, what we have over here is to find a conjunction that best combines or links up the two clauses. First clause, deciding to compete. His knee was injured. Now think about it. If someone's knee is injured, would you decide to compete in the race easily? Would it be a simple decision over here? Is it a logical step? Probably not, because if you were to compete in a race with an injured knee, not only would you struggle in the race, you might inadvertently end up aggravating the injury, making it worse, right? It could stall the recovery process, could take a longer time to heal and recover from the injury while doing badly in the race. Okay? However, what we see over here is that athletes still decided to compete in the race even though he had an injured knee. So looking for a conjunction over here that introduces a contrasting reason. What is a contrasting reason? An unexpected or against expectations. And among these 4 conjunctions over here, the one that is used to introduce a contrasting or unexpected reason is option 4. Although. Although he had an injured knee, although his knee was injured. Any questions? Okay. So this covers our questions so far. In addition, if you're interested, questions 2 and 3 are pretty tricky. However, the tip to solving both of these can be found in our Writers at Work blog. Okay. I went through question 3 with the live stream over here. How do you find this? Question 2, I'll leave it up to you as an exercise by yourself. can you find the correct article in our writer's word block that talks about conditionals here? I'll give you a hint. It's under the grammar section of our blog, okay? But you have to find out the rest. Okay? Do the rest by yourself. See if you can find the correct article that talks about the conditional over here in question 2. Okay. If you need an additional hint also, question 2 talks about the third conditional. Okay, I think this gives it a bit, this gives the answer away. But nonetheless, if you can find it in time, if you can find it, drop the link inside the chat over here so that others can know where to find it as well. The third conditional article in our grammar blog. Okay? See if you can find it before the live stream ends over here. Okay? If you don't get it, I'll give you a shout out with a special guest later on. Now we're moving on from grammar to vocab. Vocab questions are also pretty tricky if you're unfamiliar with vocab. If you don't read widely enough, vocab can be a tricky section for you. Okay. So here is how we can go about solving our vocab questions. Usually grammar consists of 10 questions. For this practice, we only had 5 because it's WA2, but in your full paper, you have 10 grammar questions. And similarly, vocab also have 10 questions. Vocab questions will take the form of fill in the blanks. Similar to what you had in grammar just now, be given a sentence with a blank in the middle. Your job is to fill in the blank with the most appropriate choice among the options presented, with a total of 5 marks for 5 questions. And at this point, you might be thinking, wait a minute, the math doesn't math. The math isn't mathing over here. You said that grammar has 10 marks and vocab is the same. So how come only there's 5 marks for vocab? Well, that's because vocab is slightly different. 5 of the vocab marks will be allocated to fill in the blank questions. The second half of the vocab marks will be allocated towards substitution questions. What are substitution questions over here? You'll be asked to replace a word or a phrase in the question with the most suitable choice among the options. Okay, so a replacement exercise rather than filling in the blanks. Okay. But enough of me just explaining, let's do rather than just listen. As Darren made his way down the stairs in the dark, the blank of the shadow puppets cast on the wall earlier flooded his mind. You have 4 words over here, all describing a certain visual element, visual perception. Which of these 4 options over here best suit the example that we're looking at? Okay. These are all quite similar, but let's take a look. Firstly, a view. A view is something you see. Okay. It's taken literally. For example, once I reached the top of the hill or once I reached the top of the mountain, I enjoyed the views of the panorama in the distance. Okay, so the literal view. Images can also take the form of literal images, like images on your phone. However, images can also take place in the mind. Can be figurative visions in your mind's eye. Okay. As I listen to my favorite childhood song, images of my memories flash through my mind. Okay. Images of the past. Scenarios. Scenarios are imaginary situations. In the scenario that my form teacher cannot make it to class, there will be a substitute teacher or replacement relief teacher that will attend to the class. Okay, so in the scenario, in the imaginary situation, that something does not happen. And finally, photographs. Photographs are literal. What comes out of a camera, a film camera? So among these four over here, views and photographs are only used for literal descriptions. However, you're looking at images in Darren's mind. So that sticks with option 2. Any questions so far for question 6? Okay, proceeding with question 7. Determine with to win. The athlete sprinted blank towards the finishing line with all his might. Okay. Over here we have 4 words connoting different levels of intensity. To do something casually is do something not seriously. Do not be serious in your effort, do not be serious in your work. Okay. Forceful is to carry out something with great strength. Sluggish. Sluggish is to do something while lacking energy. While vigorously talks not only about strength, but also with purpose, with an intention driving these actions. Okay. So looking back at our sentence over here, the athlete sprinted blank towards the finishing line with all his might. All his might tells us that he's putting in a lot of effort, a lot of strength. Okay. So we can safely eliminate options 1 and options 3. He wasn't not taking it seriously, he wasn't lacking energy, he was taking it seriously and giving all his might. Okay. Now let's left with option 2 and 4. Both of them talk about great strength, which correlates with all his might over here. But is there a purpose behind him running with all his might? Is there a reason why he's running with all his might? Yes, right at the start of the sentence, we see that he is determined to win. So this is the purpose you're looking for, telling you why he was so intent on winning. Hence, the closest match over here would be an adverb that talks about not just strength, but purpose and intention as well, leaving us with option 4, vigorously. Any questions for question 7? Okay, and that can bring us to our final question, our question 8, sorry, we still have some ways to go. Eager to find out how to use the new camera, mother studied the manual closely to blank how the features would work. Okay. What we have over here are phrasal verbs. Okay. What are phrasal verbs? Phrasal verbs are phrases, short sequences of a couple of words that are meant to be read together as a single action or a single verb. Okay. What do each of these phrasal verbs mean over here? Firstly, to make up. To make up is to comprise, to consist of. To look over is to review. To figure out is to understand, to comprehend. To make sense of. And finally, to break down is to analyze. To unpack and analyze. Now, among these 4 phrasal verbs over here, which seems like a closer match towards how the features would work when mother studies the manual. Which of these four phrasal verbs seem to match what we're looking for? Okay, I see some answers that are floating in the chat. Do we agree? Interesting questions, interesting notes and answers that we're taking a look at. It seems like we are looking closer towards option 3, to figure out, to understand or to make sense of how the features will work together. Right, so that is how you use the phrasal verb over here to answer the question. But at the same time, you might be wondering, right, wow, I don't even know any of these phrasal verbs. How do I learn these phrasal verbs? In fact, I got a pretty interesting comment before in the past. I had a viewer ask me, teacher, how many phrasal verbs do I need to learn for PSLE? Is there an answer? Unfortunately, I do not have a hard and fast answer for that, because asking me how many phrasal verbs you need to learn is equivalent to asking me how many vocab words I need to learn, how many grammar words I need to learn for PSLE. The answer is, unfortunately, there isn't a hard and fixed rule over here of how do you find enough questions to find in. However, if you're struggling to find the phrasal verbs, don't worry. There is a very useful resource that you can look at. If you have to click the link on our bio on 𝐓𝐓𝐶 TikTok page, you will be directed to this page over here. Okay, right? You can try it out with me over here. If you click the link on our bio, it will be directed to our page over here, right? A TikTok page with all of our previous shorts and videos over here. Okay. If you have to look at the top of the bio page, you will see there's a link over here, link3/writers@work. Okay, so click along this link, but be careful, open up a new tab over here. Okay. So click on this link, it will open up a new tab. It will bring you to this page over here. On this first page, it will show you a list of our social media accounts. You can see the symbols at the top. We have TikTok, YouTube, email. If you need to contact us directly, we are available on Facebook and Instagram as well. Okay, you can find all of our Writers at Work social media accounts on our website, which I went through just now. You can find us on TikTok, Instagram, 𝗖𝗓𝗓𝗄, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn as well if you're a professional. Okay. However, where you should be looking at would be the second page, the shop over here. Okay. Go to the shop, and don't worry, I'm not trying to sell you anything. You don't even need to put any money out for this, all right? Just go to the shop, scroll all the way to the bottom of the page. You'll see over here, Writers at Work cheat sheets. Okay, this is free to access. You don't have to pay any money for this. Just click to open the cheat sheets. Look for the first one at the top over here, PSLE cheat sheets with the mountain at the top. Okay, because PSLE is definitely a mountain to overcome, right? To climb over and to surmount. Okay, so click on this first link. It will bring you to a page that shows a complete list of phrasal verbs that you can learn. Okay. So don't tell those that are not in live stream for today, because this is a very valuable resource. This talks about phrasal verbs that you should learn at the P5 and P6 level. Okay. We have a total of 1, 2, 3. Okay, it's by alphabetical order. All the way we have 123 phrasal verbs in our list over here. It is neatly broken down into the phrasal verb, the meaning, and how do you use it in an example sentence. Okay, so let's try to look for figure out from this question over here, right? We have figure out in this blank. Let's try to find figure out. Starts with an F, so we move down the alphabetical list. We have over here, number 45. Maybe you can't see, let me zoom in wider for our viewing. Okay. Number 45, we have figure out. Okay. Figure out, it means to understand, to comprehend and to make sense of, to find an answer. How do you use this in a sentence? Scroll all the way on. He's trying to figure out how to earn enough money to go on a trip. Okay. He's trying to figure out how to earn enough money to go on a trip to Spain. Okay, so figure out is used over here to understand, to make sense, and to find a way or find an answer to earn money to go on a trip to Spain. Okay. For the others as well, they can be found in the table along the way. Just go by alphabetical order. For example, to break, to look over, and to make up. Up. Okay. So to make up over here, number 84, make up is used to invent an excuse or a story. Okay, so I can update this as well. Not only is it to consist of, it's also to invent or to create something from scratch. How do you use make up in a sentence? That's a good excuse that you make it up for yourself. Okay? So make up is used as to invent an excuse, to invent a story. Okay? These are just two of the 123 phrasal verbs that we have, all compiled for your reading pleasure and easy reference. Okay? That's not all. After that, we also have a student guide, a step-by-step tutorial or help page over here to help you teach and learn how to study phrasal verbs. Okay? In total, it is 9 pages. It's a total of 9 pages, completely free on the internet for you to access. Just check out our website and go to our link tree to access and download this cheat sheet over here. Okay? And there are additional notes also along the way that we'll not be going through for now. But if you're interested, feel free to access it on your own time. Okay? If you need help or you don't know where to find it, please let me know in the chat. I can show you the steps to find this page again. Okay? So feel free to download this document so that you can print it out and keep it for your revision notes. Okay. Any questions? Right, and the best thing is that it's publicly available online. All you need to do is go to our TikTok page over here, the bio. Go to the link tree at the bottom. Once you click the link tree, go to the second tab over here, shop. Okay, shop. But this is a special shop where we're not selling you anything. Just go to the bottom or the last item in the shop. Here you have 5 cheat sheets. Apart from the phrasal verb, we had who and whom that we discussed earlier today. So it's also here as well. Altogether, you have 5 discussing easy and applicable cheat sheets for you to use. Okay, so if you're interested, please feel free to join in and check out any of these cheat sheets over here. Okay, any questions? Okay. Right, so this is all available for your browsing pleasure in your own time, alright? Not only during the live stream, but also in your own time. If you have any revision notes you're interested in, feel free to access the cheat sheets over here. Yep. Okay. If you think this will be helpful for you, can leave a thumbs up. If you think this will not be helpful, you can let us know in the chat also if you don't think this will be useful for you. Okay. And as always, if you're interested to find out any additional cheat sheets along the way, if we add in any more products or any more cheat sheets for you, subscribe over here so that you can get updated with the latest notifications or uploads on our channels. Okay. Right. Question 9. Our soccer team refused to blank and all the players played to the best of their ability till the end of the game. Okay. So this can be pretty tricky to unpack over here. We don't really know what idiom goes in the blank. Okay. Let's follow the context clues. The players played to the best of their ability till the end of the game. Okay, so this tells us that they were trying their best. Okay. So it seems from the context they are trying their best. Okay, maybe I shouldn't write this here because I'll need a space to annotate the idioms later on. This tells us they were trying their best. And that means they refuse to what? If they are trying their best, that means they refuse to They refuse to give up. So among our options over here, among the 4 idioms, idioms are common sayings that are meant to be taken figuratively. Okay. Among our 4 idioms, which is the one that is used to explain the meaning of not giving up? Taking a look, the first one, to throw in the towel. To throw in the towel, that means to surrender, to admit defeat. Admit defeat. How about getting the ball rolling? To get the ball rolling is to get something started. Is to get started. To give the game away. To give the game away over here, that means it is to reveal a secret. And to keep their eye on the ball is to remain focused, to concentrate, and to remain at attention. Oops, not quite right. Okay, so once you've unpacked all these 4 idioms over here, which of these 4 idioms do you think is the best or closest fit towards conveying the idea of giving up? Which of these 4 describe the idea of giving up? In this case here, you would be looking at option 1, okay, to throw in the towel. To throw in the towel, so the team refused to surrender or admit defeat. They tried their best to play to the best of their ability till the end of the game. And finally, question 10. It took the little girl all her strength to blank the heavy door wide open. Which of these 4 verbs we should use over here? Oh, they seem to carry a certain action of effort being exerted. To push, to shove. How do you use them in this sentence then? In this case here, we should be using option 4. Okay, yes, to shove. How about the rest? To hurl is to throw. I hurled the basketball towards my opponent or towards my teammate. To hurl is to throw. However, little girl can't throw the heavy door, right? No matter how strong she is, she can't lift up and throw the door. Similarly, to toss also is to throw, but with a certain casualness to it. You wouldn't say you toss the basketball to your teammate, right? You would rather say you toss the rubbish into the rubbish bin. So to throw casually. To hoist is to carry something heavy. For example, you hoist your school bag to school every day. So that is why we do not use hurl, toss, or hoist in any of our options over here. The blank that best fits the sentence would then be option 4, to shove. To shove would then mean to push with great force. Any questions or any comments that would like a clarification over here? Okay, yep. So once again, not exactly tricky, nor is it exactly difficult. Once you have differentiated how these verbs are used in relation to the rest of the sentence, you will not have too tricky a time, I'd say. Okay. Moving on. Okay, so we'll wrap up today with a passage about substitution and replacement of the questions. This passage talks about everyone's favorite transport system, the MRT lines. Okay. Right, do any of you in the chat over here take the MRT regularly? Right? Some people enjoy taking the bus, some people enjoy taking the train because the train gets you from point A to B much quicker. Okay? So many of you, especially if your parents or if you yourself are working, you will be taking the public transit system to work to your offices on a daily basis. Okay? So this is talking about the need for trains. And you might think Singapore is such a small island. Why do we need trains or why do we need transit systems to ferry people around? Well, even with a small geographical space, Singapore is largely highly dense population with a lot of people working in the workforce. However, not everyone in Singapore can be working in the business district, right? You have your Marina Bay Business District, you have a Changi Business Park, and your Jurong Business District. However, not everyone is able to be living near these working locations, right? Oftentimes, people need to travel from far away residential areas to go to reach their offices and workplaces. Hence, trains are important to connect neighborhoods, to connect different towns together, such that people have a convenient way to access different amenities. One of these transit lines we'll be looking at over here is the Northeast Line. You may not know it for those who are born a bit younger, but the Northeast Line is Singapore's first ever fully underground MRT system. It was preceded by the North-South Line, also known as the Red Line, or the East-West Line as the Green Line, both of which have above-ground portions. The Northeast Line is the first of its kind, being the fully underground subterranean transit line. It has since been followed by the Circle Line, the Downtown Line, and most recently the Thomson East Coast Line. Okay, so let's take a look at how the first underground train system in Singapore happened. The Northeast Line, the world's first fully automated and driverless mass rapid transit line, opened in 2003. Plans for the Northeast Line were first conceived in the 1980s and 90s. It was quite challenging for the project team to come up with a plan for an automated railway line that could carry thousands of people. Okay. So the first question we need to replace over here is come up with, right? The entire phrase over here, this phrasal verb is to be replaced with a correct option. So what does it mean to come up with? Okay, if you haven't come across this phrasal verb before, it might be something that's a bit unwieldy, something you might not be comfortable dealing with. So to come up with is to develop or to invent. To come up with, it's to develop or to invent a plan. Alright, Ezra, thank you very much for liking the live. I'm glad that you're enjoying the live as well. Okay, but whether or not you like whether or not you're sending in your likes, I'm glad that everyone is able to gain something fruitful and beneficial from this. Okay. Yep, hello Ezra. So to come up with is to develop or to invent. Usually it's used to discuss, come up with a plan, come up with a solution. Okay. We came up with a plan to raise money for charity within our school. Okay. Hi Bambi. Hi, yeah. Okay. So it seems Ezra has gotten in their answer quite quickly. But let's go through each of them. Firstly, to detect. To detect is to identify. To identify, to notice. For example, in many security systems, there's a motion detector to detect, to notice any movements. Okay? So a detector is used to detect, to notice. To devise is to come up with a plan. Okay, so you can see that it's quite closely matched with our answer over here. Normally, devise is used for a plan. To disclose is to reveal information. Okay. And finally, to discover is to learn or to find out about something that previously exists. Okay. To learn about something that exists. So the one that's the closest match over here would then be to devise, right? So well done again, Ezra, getting in your right answer quite quickly. Okay. For the others as well, if you think you have the right answer, please do not hesitate to join the chat and fill in your answer. Okay. To come up with is to devise. Back to our passage. It was quite challenging for the project team to come up with a plan for an automated railway line that could carry thousands of people every day. First, the operational master plan was developed. Next, the team looked into how the rail system should operate and whether things would turn out as what had been planned and designed. Okay. So what we have over here is yet another phrasal verb. Seems there are quite a lot of phrasal verbs over here in our passage. To look into. What does it mean to look into? To look into is to study. Okay. To look into is to study a problem. Okay. Among the four options over here in question 12, which do you think could be used? Look into not so much of understanding, but rather trying to understand, trying to study it to get a better understanding of it. Okay, close, Ezra. Seems that we have, some of us have converged on the answers. How about the others? Do you all agree that the answer should be remaining among these options here? Firstly, to survey. To survey is to collect responses from a group. In class, your teachers might issue out surveys, or occasionally survey is used to carry out a brief inspection. For example, the construction company surveyed the grounds and found that it was suitable for building a tall skyscraper. Okay, so the survey is to carry out a brief inspection, to look over. To inspect. To inspect is to check carefully. Okay. To examine. To examine is similar to inspect, right? But rather it's not so much just for checking, but rather to understand how it works also. To study and understand how a system works. That's why you have to sit for examinations, because teachers want to ensure that you have studied and understand what you have learned in class. That's why you are being examined during examinations. And finally, to scrutinize. Okay, To scrutinize over here is to examine or to check carefully, with a key distinction over here, for the purpose of finding mistakes. Okay, that's why at the end of your exam paper, if you have time afterwards, make sure you scrutinize every one of your answers to make sure that you did not commit any careless mistakes. So to scrutinize, to check carefully for the purpose of finding mistakes. In this case here, was the team trying to find mistakes in the rail system? Not quite, right? They're not trying to purposely find mistakes, so we can eliminate option 1. And we can also eliminate option 4. Option 4 and option 1, they're not trying to inspect it briefly over here. Okay. They're looking into the rail system to how it should operate and whether things would turn out as a plan and design. This tells us it goes beyond just a careful check, but rather a way to study and understand how the system works as well. So the closer match would be option 3. Okay. So well done for those who have gotten it right once again. Okay. Looks like Ezra, you have 2 answers right. I don't really want a roach in your house, but you've gotten 2 answers right so far. If you get the remaining 3 questions right, then maybe we can discuss the topic, okay? But make sure you get the other 3 questions right first. Yep. Okay. Question 13. Whether things would turn out as what had been planned and designed, one of the more difficult tasks was to find out how to take care of passengers without a driver. Okay, so this is definitely an issue, right? Without a driver, without someone, a bus captain or a train captain over here, how can they ensure that passengers are well taken care of? Make sure there is no mess, there are no arguments, there is no conflict taking place on the train cabin or train carriage, right? I think very recently, especially in Singapore, there was a case of a man who went quite crazy on the train, wasn't it? Let me see if I can find a news article for everyone. Right, so there was a recent news article about the train in Singapore, the MRT in Singapore. Where there was a person who wasn't really behaving quite well on the train. So keeping that in mind, let's take a look at the question over here. How do we ensure that the passengers are taken care of without a driver? Firstly, we're looking to change the word difficult. One of the more difficult tasks was to find out how to take care of passengers without a driver. Okay. Among our options over here, as some of you have correctly pointed out, difficult, something that's difficult is something that is challenging, that requires a lot of effort. Challenging, something that requires effort. And that seems to be the case for 4 of our options over here, right? All of them seem quite similar in terms of referring to adjectives that require an amount of effort being exerted or being output by the subject. So in this case here, how should we go about trying to unpack each of these answers over here? Let's start off with the first one, arduous. Arduous might be a pretty tricky word if you've not come across it before. It means a task that is difficult and tiring. For example, if during the June holidays you did 3 practice papers a day, it would have been arduous for you, right? Something that is tiring. An effect on the person carrying it out. How about laborious? Laborious also talks about tiring, but rather referring to repetitive. Or tedious work. So let's say if you have bad handwriting and your teacher makes you recopy out your old writing to make sure the handwriting is good, that is repetitive, that is tedious, hence it is laborious. Strenuous. Strenuous means something that requires great physical exertion. Oops, not quite this. That requires great physical exertion. For example, training for your 𝗪𝗧𝗡 fitness test in school is strenuous, right? Requires a lot of physical effort on your end. And finally, demanding. Demanding refers to a task that requires great skill and effort. For example, if you see the exam paper was demanding, that means the exam questions were difficult. It required a great skill or effort to get the questions right. So among these options over here, which do you think best suits the answer of difficult? Something that is challenging, something that requires effort. In this case here, the one that is the closest match would be option 4, demanding, because it is not so much about a tiring effect, whether it's not repetitive or strenuous, but rather about an effort that requires a lot of skill to handle. Okay, so for those that have gotten it right, well done. For those who haven't gotten it right, it's okay, we still have 2 more questions to tackle before we end today. One of the more difficult tasks was to find out how to take care of passengers without a driver. The Northeast Line thus became the first to have cameras installed in the train. Okay, so to install something is to put it in place. To install, in this case here, is to fix into position. And among these 4 options over here, which best carries the idea? Okay, let me separate out the questions. Which best carries the meaning of putting something in its place? Would be option 1, fixed in place, right? Having cameras fixed in the train. So you might be wondering, right, just in the case, fix. When you say I need to fix a device, for example, that means to repair it. Okay, yes, fix means to repair. It also has another meaning. Another meaning where it means to be stuck. To be stuck or to be placed in position. For example, if you were bored in class, you wanted the class to end, you can say, my eyes were fixed on the clock, hoping that the class would end soon. Okay, so if you say your eyes are fixed on something, that means your eyes are looking towards something. They're stuck looking at something. So to be fixed in position over here. And finally, last paragraph. In addition, a strong operations control center which had the capability to supervise, monitor, and control the operations needed to be built. Once this was established, it forms the basis for all other automated systems subsequently. So we're looking for capability over here. These are our options. Capability. Simply put, it means the ability to perform required tasks. Capability to perform certain tasks. For example, you say the school prefect, the head prefect has the capability to maintain order and discipline. So they have the ability to perform their task as a prefect. Let's look at our 4 options over here. How do they relate to capability? The first option, skills. Skills refers to abilities that are learned or picked up through experience. When you learn something in the class, you learn something in a workshop, you learn these abilities, they are skills that you can work on and you can sharpen. On the other hand, means talk about having the resources or ability singular, to complete a task. For example, if you were to misbehave in class, the teacher has the means to contact your parent because they have the resources, they have your parents' contact number, they are able to provide a report of how you behaved in class. Okay? So if you misbehave in class, the teacher has the means to contact your parents regarding your behavior. Potential can be a pretty tricky one to understand. However, if any of you are interested in science, you learn about gravitational potential energy. Potential, that means ability, natural ability, but importantly, that has not been realized or fulfilled. For example, if your teacher were to say, you have the potential to be the top student in your school, that means you have the ability to reach there, but you're not at that point yet. You're not there yet, but you have the ability within you to become the top student in your school. Okay? So you have the potential to be the top student. And finally, proficiency. Proficiency is a pretty tricky word you might not have come across before. Okay. Proficiency, that means having excellent or high expertise, being an expert in a specific field or skill. For example, if you were to say, I am proficient in beating my friends in Brawl Stars, so I'm very good at this very specific skills. I'm not really good at other sports, but I'm very, very good at just this one skill. I'm proficient in it. If you were to say I'm proficient in English, not so much my mother tongue. Okay? So proficient means I'm good in one skill, but not so much about the rest. Okay? Just one skill. I'm proficient in just one language, for example. So keeping this idea in mind, let's go back to our passage. The Strong Operations Control Center has the capability to supervise, monitor, and control operations over here. Are these abilities that are learned through experience? No, right? We're not talking about the Operations Control Center going through the experience. You can't go through a lesson or a course because it is a control center. It's a building. It is not a student. Okay? So not so much about skills. How about potential? Once again, it is a building, not a person. So it doesn't have a natural ability to do anything. We're stuck with means and proficiency. Means about having the ability to complete a task, while proficiency having expertise in a specific skill. Does the control center have a single skill? No, right? It should be able to supervise, monitor, and control. Okay? So we see multiple skill sets over here that's required to carry out. So proficiency, unfortunately, wouldn't fit the bill. It leaves us with our only option over here being means. Having the means to supervise, monitor, and control operations. Any questions? Okay. So this last question is pretty tricky, so I'll highlight it out for everyone. But in the future as well, if any point in time any of these words you're unfamiliar with their meanings or definitions, please feel free to take it down on rough paper, or even better, if you have a notebook or a jotter book for you to take down these notes. Okay. Right, and I think we ran slightly over time for today, but thank you very much everyone who has joined in for our session this afternoon. For reference, this is the WA2 from 2023 P5. You want to try this out at your own time. Okay. So thank you very much for everyone for joining in. especially those who have joined in for our earlier sessions this morning and at the noontime session as well. Okay. As always, if you need any more resources, please feel free to check out our TikTok page. Not only do you have additional resources there, the resources also link to some excellent articles on our website as well that are available to the public. So in your free time and your own time, please feel free to check them out. Otherwise, this is WA2 at Work. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. We will be signing off. See you. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.